As most people strolled past the secluded hospital room on the highest floor, they would notice only a blanket of silence that cloaked the air. Machines whispered quietly beside the still figure of a young woman, Emma Whitmore, who lay as if caught between worlds. She was the only child of Charles Whitmore, one of the wealthiest men in the city. For nearly 6 harrowing months, she had been lost to a coma, a tragic consequence of a car accident that had also taken her mother. Despite the unwavering efforts of doctors and specialists, hope seemed to fade with each passing day. The hospital staff often exchanged hushed words about the same man they saw mopping the corridor outside her door every morning. Daniel Harris, the janitor, was like a shadow, quiet, understated, a devoted single father, endlessly focused on his duties. Yet that morning, there was an unusual intensity in Daniel's gaze. He lingered by Emma's room, staring through the glass as if searching for something. Inside, Charles Whitmore sat slumped in a chair beside his daughter's bed, the weight of sorrow etched deeply into his features. When Daniel finally knocked, it took a moment for Charles to respond, his heart heavy and weary. "Sir," Daniel said gently, clutching his mop, "may I come in?" Charles gave a weary nod, assuming the janitor had come merely to clean. But Daniel didn't move toward the trash. Instead, he stood there, rooted, his eyes filled with a kind of determination as he looked at him. "I know this may sound odd," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, trembling with emotion, "but I believe I can wake her." The words hung between them, a flicker of hope in the encroaching darkness. Charles blinked, the disbelief evident in his eyes. "You," he echoed, a mix of skepticism and desperation. "You're just a janitor. How can you do what the finest doctors have failed to achieve?" Daniel's gaze remained steady, unwavering. "I've witnessed something like this before," he replied, the story of his past suddenly weaving into the moment. "My wife, she was in a coma too." He paused, humanity etched in his expression, the weight of loss heavy on his chest. "She never returned, but before she slipped away, she shared something profound with me. Sometimes the souls trapped within aren't truly lost, they just need to be reminded of who they are, not through machines, but through something that calls to their heart, something familiar that reaches out to them." Charles gazed at him, caught in a whirlwind of rage and desperation. Millions had been spent in the quest for answers, yet all he had uncovered was heartache. What harm could possibly come from one more desperate attempt? "Very well," he said, his voice laced with bitterness. "Do what you believe will work." Daniel moved closer to Emma's bedside, his heart heavy. He looked down at the stillness of the delicate young woman, her face serene yet so far away. A small scar marked her wrist, and next to her lay a half-finished sketchbook filled with soft pencil portraits, faces, places, fleeting moments. Art had been her voice. From his pocket, Daniel drew out an old harmonica. "My daughter Emily loved when her mother played this," he said softly. Music was the only thing that brought her comfort when fear crept in. He began to play a slow, haunting melody that enveloped the room in warmth and sorrow. The tune drifted through the mechanical hum of the machines, reverberating gently against the cold, sterile walls. Charles turned his head, perhaps not wishing to reveal the tears escaping his eyes. After a few haunting minutes, Daniel paused. The silence that followed felt almost unbearable. Then, faintly, so faintly that at first he thought he imagined it, Emma's fingers twitched. "Did you see that?" Daniel barely whispered. Charles leaped to his feet, eyes wide with shock. "Emma?" Her eyelids fluttered, and a fragile sound escaped her lips, the first in what felt like an eternity. "Mom," she murmured, her voice a whisper. Charles called urgently for the doctors, but none could provide an explanation. They ran tests, examined readings, and shook their heads in disbelief. In the corner, Daniel stood silently, clutching his harmonica, as if afraid it might vanish into the air. In the days that followed, Emma's condition underwent a miraculous transformation. Her doctors couldn't believe their eyes, calling it a me. Her father, however, referred to it as fate. When she finally awakened, her first words were directed towards Daniel. "I know that song," she said softly, her eyes still heavy with remnants of sleep. "My mother used to hum it when I was little." She said it was about finding your way home. Daniel's lips curled into a gentle smile. Then perhaps she guided you back. From that moment on, the Whitmore mansion became a place of unexpected warmth. Charles extended an invitation to Daniel and his daughter Emily for dinner, a small gesture of gratitude that blossomed into a profound bond. In Daniel's quiet honesty, Charles found solace, and Emily's laughter breathed joy back into a home that had long forgotten it. Emma and Daniel often reminisced about that fateful morning. She began to paint again, capturing the delicate balance between sound and silence, between slumber and awakening. On one such day, she gifted Daniel a canvas, vividly portraying a man playing a harmonica beside a bed illuminated by light, a scene that felt both grounded in reality and woven from dreams. "This," she said, her voice unwavering, "is how I remember coming back." Months later, when the story burst into the public consciousness, headlines danced through the air: "Single dad janitor brings millionaire's daughter out of coma." Yet beneath the spectacle lay a profound truth. Daniel had done more than awaken a slumbering girl. He had rekindled hope in two families whose hearts had beat. To Daniel, the notion of being a miracle worker was utterly foreign. Each morning, he continued to sweep his mop through the same familiar hallways. Yet, as he walked past that room, now alive with laughter where once there had been only silence, he would pause, let his fingers glide over the harmonica tucked in his pocket, and murmur softly, sometimes, "The sweetest serenade is the love they've long forgotten to hear." In that gentle manner, the janitor who once toiled in the hospital's shadows had cleared away more than just dust. He had brushed aside the sorrow that had settled upon a grieving heart, revealing the radiant possibility of healing.